It was December 11, 2008. Two FBI agents knocked on Bernie Madoff's door at 7 a.m. He answered in his bathrobe. They asked if there was an innocent explanation. He said no. He said, "There is no innocent explanation." In one sentence, the largest financial fraud in human history was over. $65 billion had vanished. Not lost in bad trade. Not burned in a market crash. Just, gone. Stolen, dollar by dollar, over at least 17 years. 37,000 victims across 136 countries woke up to nothing. Retirees. Charities. Holocaust survivors. Nobel Prize winners. The smartest money managers on earth had handed him everything. And here's what makes this story truly insane. The SEC had investigated Madoff 5 times. 5 times. They found nothing. One whistleblower had handed them the answer on a silver platter. They ignored him for 9 years. So how does a fraud this size stay invisible this long? That answer will change how you think about money forever. But to understand it, we have to go back. Way back. To a 38-year-old Italian immigrant, a pile of postal coupons, and the most seductive lie in financial history. Boston, 1920. Charles Ponzi is broke, charming, and absolutely certain he's found a loophole. He's discovered something called an international reply coupon. These are postal vouchers you could buy in one country and redeem in another. Due to currency imbalances after World War I, you could theoretically buy them cheap in Europe and cash them in America for a profit. Ponzi calls this arbitrage. He calls his company the Securities Exchange Company. He promises investors a 50% return in 45 days. People line up around the block. Here's the problem. The arbitrage never actually worked at scale. The profit margins were razor thin. The paperwork alone would have eaten the returns alive. Ponzi knew this almost immediately. So he did the only thing he could think of. He paid the first investors with money from the second investor. Then paid the second investors with money from the third. Then the fourth paid the third. Then the fifth paid the fourth. Musical chairs. Except the music kept getting louder. And louder. And nobody wanted to leave the dance floor. Within 8 months, Ponzi had taken in $15 million. That's roughly $230 million in today's dollar. From a single office in Boston. This is the entire engine of every Ponzi scheme ever run. It's not complicated. It's not sophisticated. It's just a lie told confidently enough that math stops mattering. But here's the question that actually matters. Why do smart people fall for it? Not just regular investors. Banks. Hedge funds. Ivy League endowments. People whose entire job is to not get scammed. The answer isn't stupidity. The answer is psychology. There are 3 traps, and almost everyone falls into at least one. Trap number 1, social proof. When everyone around you is making money, doubt feels irrational. If your neighbor, your accountant, and your brother-in-law are all in, the risk isn't joining. The risk feels like missing out. This is called herding behavior, and Wall Street runs on it. Trap number 2, authority bias. We are wired to trust people who look and sound like experts. Madoff wasn't just a fund manager. He was a former chairman of the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. He helped write the rules of the market. When someone that credible tells you the returns are real, your brain doesn't question it. Your brain feels lucky to be included. Trap number 3, deliberate exclusivity. This one is the most dangerous. Most investment scams beg for your money. They cold call. They email. They pressure. The best ones do the opposite. They make you beg to give them your money. Madoff turned investors away. He made people wait months for a meeting. He refused to explain his strategy in detail. He called it proprietary. And people didn't walk away suspicious. They worked harder to get in. Because exclusivity signals legitimacy. Because if it were a scam, why would he turn money away? This psychological cocktail, social proof, authority, exclusivity, is a perfect trap. It's been run in 1920 Boston. It's been run in 1990s Florida. It was run in a quiet office in Midtown Manhattan for at least 17 years. But here's what made Madoff different from every other Ponzi in history. He wasn't just charming. He wasn't just credible. He had something Charles Ponzi never had. He had the infrastructure of a real Wall Street firm. Legitimate trading desks. Legitimate clients. A legitimate reputation built over decades. The fraud wasn't the whole business. It was hidden inside a real business. And that made it almost impossible to see from the outside. Almost. Because one person did see it. A financial analyst named Harry Markopolos spent 9 years trying to prove Madoff was a fraud. He did the math in 4 hours. He said the returns were mathematically impossible. He brought his findings to the SEC in 2000. Then again in 2001. Then again in 2005. He called the Boston SEC office. He called the New York SEC office. He sent a 21-page report titled, Asterisk, the world's largest hedge fund is a fraud. Asterisk. The SEC filed it away. And Bernie Madoff kept collecting money. By the 1990s, Bernie Madoff was untouchable. Not famous in a tabloid way. Famous in the way that actually matters on Wall Street. Quietly, privately, exclusively famous. The kind of famous where people whisper your name at dinner parties. The kind where an introduction to you is a favor someone owes. His legitimate trading firm, Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, was one of the largest market makers in America. It processed roughly 10% of all trades on the New York Stock Exchange. 10%. That's not a footnote in the industry. That's a cornerstone. His offices were in the Lipstick Building in Midtown Manhattan. Sleek. Glass. Expensive. The legitimate trading floors were on floors 1 through 2. The fraud was hidden on the 17th floor. Most employees didn't know the 17th floor existed. The people who worked on it were loyal, long-term, and mostly family. His returns were almost supernaturally consistent. Year after year, between 10% and 12%. Not spectacular enough to seem fake. Just good enough to seem genius. Markets crashed in 1987. Madoff clients made money. Dot-com bubble burst in 2000. Madoff clients made money. 9/11 shook global markets to their core. Madoff clients made money. This was the most seductive part of the illusion. Every other fund on earth had bad years. Madoff never did. And rather than making people suspicious, it made them desperate to get in. The client list reads like a who's who of global wealth. Steven Spielberg's charitable foundation. The Nobel Prize-winning economist Elie Wiesel's foundation. Elie Wiesel, a Holocaust survivor, lost $15 million. His entire life saving. Gone. HSBC exposed $1 billion. Banco Santander exposed $3 billion. European banks lined up to funnel client money into Madoff's fund. They called these feeder funds. And the feeder fund managers collected fat fees for doing almost nothing. Because nobody was checking. Why would they? The returns were consistent. The man was credible. The auditor was a tiny 3-person firm in a strip mall in Rockland County, New York. That should have been a red flag. A fund managing billions of dollars uses a 3-person suburban accounting firm. Nobody asked. Because nobody wanted the answer to be no. This is the thing about financial bubbles and fraud. They require collective willful blindness. Not just one greedy person. An entire ecosystem of people who benefit from not looking too closely. The feeder fund managers made millions in fees. The accountants had a loyal client. The banks earned commissions. Everyone ate well. As long as nobody asked the wrong question. And Madoff made absolutely sure they didn't. He cultivated relationships like a master gardener. He joined the right clubs. He donated to the right causes. He was active in Jewish philanthropic circles, which is where many of his victims came from. He gave to hospitals, museums, universities. He served on the boards of nonprofits. He was appointed to serve on an SEC advisory committee. The same SEC that was supposed to be watching him. Let that sink in for a moment. The man running the largest Ponzi scheme in history was advising the agency meant to catch him. Meanwhile, the lifestyle was extraordinary. A penthouse in Manhattan worth $7 million. A French Riviera villa. A home in Palm Beach inside an exclusive country club community. A 55-foot yacht named Bull. A 38-foot sport fishing boat. Private jets. Fur coats for his wife Ruth. A wardrobe so extensive investigators would later catalog it line by line. $1 million in suits. $39,000 in pocket squares. He threw lavish parties. He spent winters in Palm Beach. He summered in the Hamptons. And through all of it, he kept a calm, almost cold demeanor. People described him as warm but not effusive. Generous but not showy. Confident but never boastful. He looked like what he was supposed to be. A man with nothing to hide. Decades passed. The money kept flowing in. The statements kept showing steady gains. The clients kept sleeping soundly. But on the 17th floor of the Lipstick Building, the numbers were getting harder to manage. Because a Ponzi scheme is not a static crime. It's a treadmill. And you can never slow down. Every dollar that stays in the fund needs to be matched with a fake return. Every fake return means more money owed the next year. The number that had to be covered was doubling every few years. By 2008, Madoff needed to find billions in new money every single month just to stay even. And then, in September 2008, the entire global financial system stopped. September 2008. Lehman Brothers collapses. The stock market loses 30% in 6 weeks. Panic spreads through every trading floor on Earth. And wealthy investors do what wealthy investors always do in a crisis. They call their fund managers. They want their money back. In a real fund, this is painful but manageable. You liquidate positions. You process redemptions. You pay out. In a Ponzi scheme, this is a death sentence. Because the money was never invested. It's just gone. In October 2008, Madoff's clients requested $7 billion in withdrawals. $7 billion. In 1 month. He had $234 million in his actual bank account. He was $6.7 billion short. For 17 years, Madoff had ridden a tide of incoming money that always outpaced outgoing requests. That tide had just reversed. And it reversed all at once. He started desperately calling his feeder funds in Europe. He needed fresh capital immediately. The feeder fund managers were confused. Madoff never chased money. Madoff turned money away. Something was wrong. On the 17th floor, his small team of loyal operators worked around the clock. They were generating fake trade confirmations. Fake account statements. Fake portfolio positions going back years. The paper trail was enormous and entirely fictional. Meanwhile, Madoff's 2 sons, Mark and Andrew, worked in a legitimate trading business on the floors below. They had no idea what was happening upstairs. On December 9, 2008, Madoff called a meeting. He told his sons he wanted to pay out early bonuses. Hundreds of millions of dollars in bonuses. Before the firm had collected its usual fees. Mark and Andrew were confused. Where was the money coming from? They pressed him. And Bernie Madoff, a man who had maintained this lie for at least 17 years, possibly longer, cracked. He told them to come to his apartment. He said he needed to tell them something. That evening, in his Manhattan penthouse, he told his sons the truth. All of it. The 17th floor. The fake statements. The missing billions. He called it one big lie. Mark and Andrew left the apartment in shock. They did not protect their father. They called a lawyer. The lawyer called the FBI. The next morning, December 10th, 2 agents arrived at the apartment. Bernie confirmed everything. The following morning, December 11th, they came back with handcuffs. He answered the door in his bathrobe. He said there was no innocent explanation. And just like that, the music stopped. The investigation that followed was staggering in scope. Forensic accountants tore apart the 17th floor operation piece by piece. What they found was both sophisticated and shockingly primitive. The fake statements were generated on decades-old software. The same IBM AS/400 system from the early 1980s. They had been backdating trades for years. Picking stocks that had already gone up. Printing fake confirmation. Mailing them to clients. The clients never questioned the statements. Because the statements always looked good. There were no real trade. Not for at least 13 years. Possibly never. Investigators found no evidence Madoff had ever executed a single legitimate trade inside the fraudulent fund. Not one. $65 billion in fake account balances. $17 billion in real money actually deposited. The difference was the fabricated returns. The interest that never existed. The gains that were always just numbers on paper. Clients who had deposited money decades ago and never withdrawn were actually owed nothing. Their gains were fiction. Their statements were theater. Their retirement savings were a spreadsheet someone typed on a 1980s computer. The fallout was immediate and global. Feeder funds froze. Banks wrote down billions. The SEC launched an internal investigation into how they had missed this for so long. Harry Markopolos, the analyst who had warned them 9 times, testified before Congress. He said he had been afraid for his life. He said the SEC was financially illiterate. He said any first-year math student could have seen what he saw. The agency that was supposed to protect investors had been briefed, handed evidence, and had done nothing. 5 times. 9 years. And now 37,000 people had nothing. Bernie Madoff was arrested on December 11, 2008. He was 70 years old. He had been running this fraud since at least 1991. Possibly since the 1970s. He pleaded guilty to 11 federal crimes. Fraud. Theft. Perjury. Money laundering. On June 29, 2009, he was sentenced. The judge gave him 150 years. The maximum possible. He died in federal prison in April 2021. He was 82 years old. He never expressed remorse that his victims found convincing. After the handcuffs, the real accounting began. And it was devastating. 37,000 victims. 136 countries. $17 billion in real money. Gone. The fake account balances, the fictional gains, the paper profits, totaled $65 billion. People had built their entire financial lives around numbers that never existed. A woman named Bert Ross lost $5 million. His entire retirement. He said he felt like he'd been punched in the stomach and couldn't breathe. Thousands said the same thing. Charities collapsed overnight. The JEHT Foundation, which funded criminal justice reform, shut down immediately. Gone. Hadassah, one of the largest women's organizations in America, lost $90 million. Elie Wiesel's foundation, serving Holocaust survivors, lost everything. Wiesel called Madoff a thief, scoundrel, criminal. He said he had trusted him completely. That trust was the weapon Madoff used most effectively. The family didn't escape either. Ruth Madoff was stripped of nearly all assets. She was allowed to keep $2.5 million to live on. Everything else was seized. The Manhattan penthouse. The Palm Beach estate. The yachts. The $39,000 in pocket squares. All of it auctioned off to pay victims back. Mark Madoff, the son who turned his father in, never recovered. He was hounded by lawsuits, public suspicion, and relentless press scrutiny. On December 11, 2010, exactly 2 years after his father's arrest, Mark took his own life. He was 46 years old. His brother Andrew died of cancer in 2014. He had said the stress of the aftermath had made his illness worse. Bernie Madoff destroyed more than bank accounts. He destroyed families. His own included. The legal aftermath reshaped how America regulates investment advisors. The Dodd-Frank Act of 2010 created new whistleblower protections. For the first time, people who reported financial fraud to the SEC could receive financial reward. Harry Markopolos, the man who warned them 9 times and was ignored, testified that this law was long overdue. The SEC overhauled its examination process for investment advisors. New requirements for independent custody of client assets were introduced. Simple changes that should have existed decades earlier. But here's the thing that should keep you up at night. These reforms make the last fraud harder. They don't stop the next one. Because the next Ponzi scheme won't look like Madoff's. It never does. It will look legitimate. It will come recommended by someone you trust. It will have consistent returns no one else can match. It will make you feel lucky just to be included. The psychological traps that caught Nobel laureates and Hollywood directors and Holocaust survivors have not been patched. They're human nature. They're running right now. In some office, somewhere, someone is generating fake statements on modern software. Someone is paying old investors with new investor money. Someone is turning away clients to see more exclusive. The music is playing. And somewhere, people are dancing. The only defense is the question nobody wants to ask when the returns look great. How, exactly, is this making money? Charles Ponzi went to prison in 1920. Bernie Madoff died in prison in 2021. A century apart. The same crime. The same trap. The same victims. And that's how blind trust became the most expensive thing you can give on Wall Street.